There we go. Wow. Wow. I don't know what just happened after a tech run through.
We did a full listen, people. We did a full technology run through, like literally, like we did airplane mode, do not disturb, no, our pods. We were good, and then we get on here, and the Instagram was like, it's not gonna happen.
We did all the things. That means somebody's supposed to get free tonight. That's all.
That's exactly what that means, right? And that's why I moved to do most of my shows now on YouTube. Okay.
Good to know. Good to know.
Well, I'm happy we were able to use Pride in the Pews account, because then this content will actually live on your page.
Yes.
Yes, so I think that's a good thing. And then if people who are my followers are not following Pride in the Pews, you all should definitely follow their account so you can learn more about some of the amazing things that they're doing, and get involved. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I was saying before I was trying to bring on Minister Abram was that it has been like every other Thursday, I have been having different topics. And so um, 2 weeks ago, we talked about what it means to be transgender and finding love and being in a relationship. So I'm always trying to add different content that can be impactful for the LGBTQ plus community. So I tell people who follow me, if you want more content that is substantive, that is life changing, that you feel like it can impact your lives, you got to share the video, you got to like it, you got to comment, and then we'll keep showing up. If not, then I go to the gym, I go cook.
You can find things to do.
Yes, I find things to do. So, tonight we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about dating, and we're talking about sexuality. Yes, that's what we're talking about, and how the three sometimes can support each other, and then sometimes they can be counter, and how it just becomes very complicated when you're trying to navigate this world as same gender loving man, a gay man, a trans person, whether you're dating, and it just shows up in a lot of weird ways. So we definitely invite people, if you have questions, use the
Yes.
question function. It has like a little question mark. Hopefully, they will start populating there for you. He's like, yes, yes.
They already have. They're already typing it in.
Great, great, great. So I'm joined today by Minister Dawn Abram, and you let me know: are we going by Minister Abram? We're going by
You
Dawn? What
you
we?
can just call me Don. Don is perfectly fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I guess we'll see what you're comfortable with, and
That's right.
so we can go forward. So, tell us, Dawn, a little bit about yourself, and then also talk about Pride in the Pews if people already don't know what you all do.
Yeah, yeah, happy to. One, I'm so excited to be in conversation with you. And yeah, happy to share a little bit about myself. So, I am born and raised on the south side of Chicago. And I grew up in this hand clapping, toe tapping black church right down the street from me. And my Jamaican patois speaking grandmother would drag me to church every Sunday, every single Sunday. And I hated it. I was not here for it. I would come up with all sorts of excuses, like not being able to find the right socks or not having my little white usher gloves,
Oh
like those
Lord.
white usher gloves that ushers had. But she wasn't here for it. She drugged me anyway. And eventually I started going every Sunday. And at the age of 14, I was called to preach. And I began preaching across the city of Chicago and then across the country because everyone was so excited about this young man who was on fire for God. And shortly after I accepted my call, that's when I began to explore my sexuality. And what I knew, and this is an experience that not only I have, so many others. What I knew in exploring my queerness was that I could not embody both my queerness and my calling at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
there's a cost,
yeah, yeah. And that's
right?
right
A very
around
big
puberty,
cost.
14, and then figuring out who you are, who you're supposed to love. There's all these feelings about sexuality and spirituality at the same time.
Yes, yes. And let me be clear, I also was like, I was actively bisexual.
Okay.
Right. And I didn't have language for that. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. And it didn't seem like a contradiction to me, but I knew that if I embodied that truth, I would not only lose my community, I would lose my ministry. And so I stayed in the closet, not bringing those two lives together until I got to Harvard Divinity School. And that's where I was able to unpack what I call toxic theologies. These are theologies rooted in homophobia and transphobia and otherization of other people, and then reconstructed a theology that spoke to me. But the question I had was, I might be free, right? I've been able to take a deep dive into scripture, but what about my grandma's church, right? What about the church on the corner, the storefront church, right? How do we get them to have these sorts of conversations so that they can begin to show up for us, not just in the church, but even in the street? Because, of course, we know that there's a lot of harm done to queer and trans folk, and often the church stands silently.
Yeah. So, and talking to those types of churches, I feel like, and I grew up in a mega Baptist church, so I have a different experience, right? It was definitely a more progressive, mega Baptist church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I had a love-hate relationship with the church because at one point it was like a very safe space. They were very open, very engaging. Yeah. But then there's a backhanded, you a sinner, you're going to hell if you're doing X, Y, and Z. But those smaller churches, I feel like they're very in your face where they're like, oh no, those sissies can't come in here. Oh no, you can't do that. Like put that risk, like they're in your face with it so much. So you working with those types of churches, I feel like is very hard. I would love to hear like your experience, like when you go to places like that.
Yeah. So those are really most of the churches that we work with. Churches that are on the periphery of affirmation and pastors who don't have the language and they don't have the verbiage, right? But they're like, I want to learn, right? And their learning process is clumsy and it's messy and it can be offensive at times, right? But they come to you saying, I want to know more. So I think a great example of what we do is a church that we trained actually not too far from us here in Chicago. And I was training the church, and this church, I mean, they were pretty reluctant. Leadership was pretty reluctant to bring a queer, right, person in to talk about LGBTQ plus issues. It's a conservative Baptist church. And I was talking, and as I was preaching and teaching, I could sense that there was some resistance. Like I could feel the sort of uneasiness in the room. And I just kept teaching. And then I opened the floor up for questions. And I said, do you have any questions based on what I've shared and what I've done in terms of curriculum? And one of the deacons, senior leaders of the church, said, I've been sitting here and I've been wrestling with a question and I don't really know how to ask it and I don't really want to be offensive, but can you tell me what a bear is?
Like, bro, there had nothing to do with the curriculum, but I've been itching to ask, what is a bear? Am I a bear?
They're like, am I a bear? Am I a bear? Literally. I just want to know what a bear is. Like, what is a bear? And so I started having a whole conversation about tribes in the community. There are different characteristics based on your body. And you have tops and bottoms and firsts. And they're like, how do you decide who's a bottom? I mean, it was a
who's the woman? I'm sure you got that question. Who's the woman? Like,
how do you decide who the woman is? And I was like, I think we're still trying to figure that out. No.
Right.
But I began explaining, and in that instance, right, the resistance that I felt turned into curiosity. Right. And like that's ultimately the work that we do at Pride in the Pews. It's literally like get in where you fit in. If you're curious about what a bear is, I can talk to you about that, and I'm happy to spend some time on it. And let's talk about structural and institutional change too.
Right?
And so like we can talk about what a twink is and what a bear is and
Yeah.
right, all that. But what ultimately we're trying to get you to do is recognize our humanity.
Yes, yes, yes. But
Right.
I like that approach because even for traditional Christian, not say tradition, I'll say traditional Christian institutions, they take the time to learn about other faiths, right? Like they understand Islam, their customs, like they ask questions. So if they're around them, they know how to act appropriately. It doesn't mean they agree with it, but they're like, I know, she's wearing this for this reason, so I'm going to respect it. So if they're asking you about the culture, about
Yeah.
our culture, I think that's a first step. That is a first
Yes.
step.
Yes.
I'll take that
Yes.
step, sir, ma'am, please.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
And Lamont, I want to share this too because I think oftentimes churches that are not perfect in language
Mhm,
and don't fully understand,
mhm,
but they're eager to,
mhm.
don't always get the grace to
Yeah,
mess up.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm,
And so I remember a pastor was telling me that one day on Easter service, Easter Sunday, he was preaching a sermon,
mhm,
and a Black trans woman who had been frequenting the congregation
mhm,
came in,
mhm,
and he saw her from the pulpit.
mhm,
And as he was preaching, he saw a couple of mothers,
mhm,
old mothers, get
mhm,
up and walk toward her.
mhm.
And he got really, really nervous about what they were going to say
Yeah, yeah.
and what they were going to do.
Mhm.
After service, he rushed over to the mothers and said, "Hey, I just want to know, like, what y'all talked with her about."
Mhm, mhm.
And they said, "Well, Pastor, we just wanted to tell her that we'd be happy to take her shopping so that she knows what to wear next time she comes into the sanctuary." Right? and, and I'm like, look, we can talk about respectability politics, and I'm here for that.
Yeah,
We can talk about policing people's clothing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the reason why that pastor was so excited was because he said they treated her like any other woman
Mhm,
that
mhm,
would come into the
mhm,
sanctuary.
mhm.
And that for him was a win.
Yes, yes, yes. Because it's welcoming. It's the same, you know, I call it equality, and like, hey, this is how we do it here. We want you to come in the right way. It
Yes.
right, right. So I say I love it when people are meeting folks where they are. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So talk
Yeah.
to us because we're talking about how some of this impacts us as gay men, as transgender people, particularly ourselves, but also dating. So I
Yeah.
know people use the Bible a lot, right? They use the Bible to say like or to justify what they want. I will say that, right?
Yes.
Any point
Yeah.
they want, they pull the Bible out. There's a scripture that they'll say, oh, well, it says this here, right? Like
Yep.
slaves obey their masters.
Yep.
So we're okay with slavery, right?
Yep.
And so there are some, texts in the Bible that talk about what looks like gay relationships and saying like we're going to hell, we're going to or abomination. Can you share with people if they don't already know like what those texts are and then like the context interpretation like that
Yep.
to help people.
Yeah, no, happy to. So, first and foremost, I want to name that the way that we think about sexuality,
Mhm,
queerness,
mhm,
all right, in modern times
mhm,
is not the way that folk who were in the Greco Roman world understood sexuality.
mhm,
All right.
mhm,
In fact, there's actually no word that is equivalent,
mhm.
right, to the modern understanding of what we think of as sexuality today. And
Right, 'cause
yeah,
when I read it, there's a whole bunch of lay with, right?
yep. 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 It's the lay with language. It's
Mhm,
also the sort of mapping on,
mhm,
right, of our understanding
mhm,
of
mhm,
sex relationships to
mhm,
the Bible,
mhm,
right, which causes us to interpret it out of context.
mhm,
Right. And
mhm,
so even when we talk about that Leviticus passage of men should not lay with men as they do women,
mhm,
etc. I mean, it is now widely accepted among biblical scholars and folk who actually read the text in its original
mhm.
language that that particular passage was not talking about respectful, same gender loving relationships.
Mm, mm,
Right.
mhm,
That particular passage was actually speaking to the exploitation
mm.
of younger men.
So like
right?
pedophilia, like
A,
pedophiles.
yes, it
Okay.
is absolutely referring to pedophilia,
Mm,
sexual exploitation,
mhm,
and even sexual trafficking.
mm,
And so for us to actually suggest that that is the equivalent
mm,
to same sex, loving
mm,
same sex relationships
mm.
between consensual adults, it's a theological and intellectual fallacy.
But it was okay to do that to women, but not to men.
And here, you are hitting the nail on the head. You are
Like,
hitting the nail on the head. And for
mhm,
so many folk who interpret the Bible
yeah.
in anti-LGBTQ plus ways,
Mhm,
they are so willing to bypass violence against women,
mhm, mhm,
right,
mhm,
and sexual predation,
mhm, mhm,
right,
mhm.
just to demonize LGBTQ plus folks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we can treat women however we want, but Lord, no, don't do it to a man.
Literally. Literally. And that's, I mean, you asked about text,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, we can look at the Sodom and Gomorrah text,
Mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm.
That's a classic one. How many of y'all have actually heard, like, oh, Sodom and Gomorrah, that's why they were destroyed, and that's why God got rid of them?
Mhm,
I'm like,
mhm.
we've all heard this before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard it way too many times.
That
Yeah,
there are a couple things wrong with that argument,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Mhm,
No, number one, okay, the folk who were coming to Lot's house,
mhm,
okay, to
mhm.
have his way with an angel, by the way, that is not human to human interaction. Men wanted to come in and
Mhm,
have their way with an angel,
mhm, mhm,
Lot's visitors,
mhm, mhm,
okay?
mhm,
And so to suggest in any way that we might be able to make sense of this as it relates to human relationships,
mhm,
we're taking the text out of context to begin with.
mhm, mhm.
But let's just presume,
Yeah.
just because we're having fun, okay?
Right.
Let's presume that they were. This can be applicable to
Mhm,
human relationship.
mhm,
Even in that instance, before they could even get to Lot, right? Before they could even get to Lot's guests,
mhm.
Lot said, "Hold up, wait. I don't want you to have my guests, the angels, but you can go ahead and have my underage daughter."
Again, you can rape this little girl, but not the men.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense. And this is what I try to underscore, particularly to my straight counterparts. God bless them.
Yeah.
You need to understand that homophobia and transphobia does not only hurt queer and trans people.
Mhm,
It hurts straight people too,
mhm, mhm.
namely Black women
Yeah, yeah,
who are suffering under the hands of this.
yeah, yeah. So thank you for, just taking two little pieces of the scripture that people take way out of context and
Way,
like
liberty,
and just
child, liberty.
just demonize a whole group of individuals. And I think, even though it's simple for us to like question the Bible and say that doesn't make sense, it still has impacted a lot of people's experiences with the church. It
Yep.
still has impacted their relationship with God. So like, how do we kind of like unlearn some of that stuff? Like,
Yeah.
because you and I, we both grew up in the church, and when I say grew up, like from
Like grew up.
like everybody in my family is either a minister, literally, or a crackhead, and there's no in between. There's no in between, right? So
Yeah.
you either decided to go preach or you went to the streets. I'm doing something
Yep.
different, but but I'm serious. Like, so all of that has
Yeah.
been ingrained in us, and like
Yeah.
like how do you unlearn some of that? Like, how do you
Yeah.
recommend? Yeah.
Yeah. So, a few things. One is it's important to note that even though we've made a lot of progress,
Mhm,
0 out of 8 historically Black Christian denominations,
mhm.
0 out of 8 affirm LGBTQ plus folks.
Hmm.
0 out of 8
Now these are the major Christian denominations.
major Black
Hmm.
Christian denominations.
Hmm.
We're talking about the AME Church,
Even
the
the
Kojic
AME, I
Church.
thought AME were like a little like
Yeah, they're working on it, but they're not there.
hmm.
Right? But
Hmm.
not there.
Hmm.
We're talking about AME Zion.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about National Baptist Convention,
Mm-hmm.
Progressive. None of them,
None of them.
none of them
Yeah.
have made formal stances expressing their support
Well, you,
of the LGBTQ plus community.
when you say that, and I have this conversation with my pastor all the time, and I go to Affirming Church. I was
Look, shout your church out.
yes,
Shout
I
your
go to
church.
Vision Community Foundation, Vision Church here in Atlanta. And one of the things I said, like, if a church does not have a public stance
Yes.
and they remain silent on
Yes.
something, that is a
Yes.
message.
Yes. Yes. Silence quite literally is violence in this instance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, you are sending a very clear message. If you remain silent on this issue,
Mm-hmm.
you are essentially endorsing the status quo.
Yeah. And you leave it up for people to believe
Yes.
what society says. You leave it up for people to struggle with what your deacons are saying or what someone on Fox News has said. So I feel like whether you publicly agree with it or you don't, say something so we at least know
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Say
Yeah. Just
something.
be clear.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
Right? Don't leave it vague and ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because folk will come into your church not knowing where you stand,
Mm-hmm.
but then they try to join the choir and you say, oh, I meant to tell you.
Right. Or I want to bring my husband, and you're like, yeah, I can't join the couples ministry. Well, you take my money, though. You take my money.
Hello?
You took the
You take my money and you take my talent.
and my time.
Okay?
Right. Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
do all of that, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to name that, like, this informs
Mhm.
so many of our walks,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because it's such a dominant idea. And so in terms of unlearning what I call religious trauma,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Because that's what it is. When you are in spaces that do not affirm you, that condemn you to hell,
Mhm.
right? That tell you that God does not love you as you are,
Mhm.
that is a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Your humanity being questioned as you're sitting in the pews is a traumatizing experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And so we need to first acknowledge the fact that so many of us have been traumatized by the church.
Mhm. Yeah.
Period.
I 100%. I think it manifests in a number of ways, like whether it's depression, alcoholism, drug
Yes.
use,
Yes.
people try to kill themselves,
Yeah.
people no longer. I, I say they believe in God, but they get angry with God, and they stay in that space of anger and rage with God because they're like, "This is who I am. I can't turn it off." Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Yep. No, I completely agree. And I want to, is when we talk about how do we begin to undo this stuff,
hmm
right?
hmm
Give yourself permission to question the text.
Hmm.
Give yourself permission to question interpretations of the Bible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And here's a good place to start. If an interpretation of any biblical text that you hear is endorsing oppression, subjugation,
Mm-hmm.
or self-loathing,
Mm-hmm.
that's likely not a text that serves you or aligns with God's love for you. Oh, that felt good to me.
Can you say that again? Because I feel like if some text has that there, it was created by someone to control a group of individuals.
Yes. 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 And somebody said question the whole book. Yes. Question the whole book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And here it is. Even as I'm questioning a book, I can use the book and tell you that the book says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are not meant to check our minds at the door.
Yes. 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 Someone asked the question if we're allowing people to join. We are allowing people to join if you want to share your experience or you want to ask a question about spirituality, dating, sexuality. Yeah, click the request button. You can join, and Dawn will bring you on. Okay?
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah.
And there are questions in the chat. I think I can sort of raise those and
Yes.
we can throw them in. So someone asked, why does the church rather we live alive than live in our truth?
Mm. Woo.
That's a great question.
Like,
I have a few thoughts. There.
Oh.
Okay. And I ultimately think it's because often the Black church has carried the water of whiteness and white supremacy.
Hmm. Hmm.
What that means is Black institutions have been operating in ways that serve whiteness
Mhm, mhm,
and not the sort of benefits of our community. And
mhm,
so, in an effort to be respectable,
mhm, mhm,
right, to be respected by mainstream white society,
mhm,
we subscribe to the notions and ideas that you are supposed to be straight, you are supposed to be cisgender,
mhm,
you are supposed to be married,
mhm,
right? You are supposed to be well educated,
mhm,
right? And you're supposed to have a particular class status,
mhm, mhm.
right? Because that's what you do to be
Yeah,
respectable.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the Black church has adopted this mentality
Mhm.
and has subjugated its members under the weight of it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
All right, and said if you don't live to up to these standards, you need to keep that at home. You need to leave that out of the sanctuary.
Mhm,
You don't need to bring that here.
mm,
And so the church actually believes that they are benefiting from your oppression. They believe they are benefiting,
mhm.
right, from you not living your truth because it allows them to be more respectable,
To
right, in the eyes of mainstream society.
to kind of fit in and say, okay, this is the norm, instead of just saying, hey, if that's what y'all want to be over there, great. But this is who we are as Africans, as people of color. This is our culture, which is diverse,
Yeah.
and we it's okay for us not to subscribe to whiteness.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And someone's actually asking to be brought on.
Okay.
I can bring them on and see what
Sure.
their question. Yeah.
Sure. Let's see.
Let's see. Let's see. Oh boy, let me buckle up.
Ah, let's
Let me
see. Let's
buckle
see.
up.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, how y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I mean, everything that y'all, it's just been, this whole week has been just a whole, I guess, a spiritual renaissance for people. Because I just been on lives on lives on lives talking about everything from the nine choirs of the angels to just how spirituality is in the present state of where we're living right now. So I'm hearing you all talking about the the Black church and how and pretty much how it's been used and
Mhm,
pretty much manipulated throughout the times. But to me, what the Black church has turned into, it was something that was created by our oppressors to teach Black people how to oppress their own people.
mhm,
And, and a lot of things that's taught in there. Okay, well, if you live in a certain way, well, you're gonna go straight to hell. Well, you got to explain to me what is hell.
mhm,
Because number one, people would probably say there's some people that actually believe that hell is right here on earth. Because you gotta understand that this is a realm in between realms. There's realms above us and there's realms below us.
mhm,
So where is this actual hell that we're living
mhm, mhm,
in? And as you can see over the past 2 weeks, we're seeing an entire island be engulfed in flames. We're seeing countries going at war with each other. We're seeing
mhm,
it, even in our own country, our whole political system is just in shambles. So
mhm,
like we're in an age of destruction.
mhm.
So that's what we really need to be focusing on, not why certain people are living a certain way or why they are the way they are when our whole entire world is just collapsing on top of us.
Yeah, yeah. Like, can you imagine being in slavery and saying, "Well, damn, what worse? What could be worse than this?" Like,
Right.
Exactly.
after someone has raped
Exactly.
you, someone has stolen your child, you're
Yep.
in shackles, you've been beaten,
Mhm.
and then you got to pray to this, white Jesus,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
right?
It's actually based on a European man from France, but
Right.
go ahead.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's why I think it's okay to question everything in the Bible, including
Agreed.
heaven,
Agreed.
hell. Question. It's okay to. That's my view. I'll let Dawn respond. Yeah.
Oh no, we're on the same page. And let me be clear, right? There was a Black church that white masters oversaw,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm,
That Black church existed.
mhm,
But there was another Black church that scholars call the invisible institution.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
And this service took place after the master was asleep.
mhm,
This service took place in the hush harbors of plantations in the South.
mhm,
And it was in that place where our ancestors, right, gathered together and said the theology that they're preaching doesn't align with my understanding of self.
mhm,
And so we're going to construct a whole new theology that we're
Mm-hmm.
going to use to subvert,
mhm,
right,
mhm,
systems of oppression,
mhm,
that we're going to use as the basis for our liberation.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that the church we need to be pursuing is the church of the ancestors who gathered in the hush harbors, not the church of those who were being oversaw by the master.
And another thing is, people want to talk about the Old Testament, the New Testament. What I'm gonna say may sound controversial, but let's put it in plain context. The Bible is nothing but a big book of journals and diaries, just written from people's different perspectives. I saw this on this certain day, and this happened this way. And then you read a couple chapters later, the same person's probably talking about the same incident, but from a different perspective. But then they take these verses and try to make a sermon out of it. But all you're doing is talking about what somebody's eyewitness account from 2,000 years ago. The Bible's not that old. Christianity is not that old. Actually, Christianity is probably, if you take out Scientology, it's probably one of the youngest religions on earth, rather. But there's no concrete evidence as to like how young it is. Yeah. But not to get too esoteric, I wasn't gonna say a lot of people, but we really got enough knowledge. There's enough people on earth to write a whole brand new Bible.
Yep.
Is people still having angelic and multidimensional experiences with angels and all kinds of other beings right now, as it was told in Ezekiel's vision. The wheel within the wheel, the opening, the seraphim, the cherubim, all of that. People are still seeing these things.
We're waiting for you to write your book, your experience, so that people
literally
can hear it.
I mean, I'm already here. I mean,
there we go.
I've been on this journey since 2019. Like we could talk. We could talk.
Yeah. And I love how you share talking about it's people's experience. It's what they viewed are their followers, their experiences. And I think part of us questioning faith, any faith whatsoever, is what is your experience? And does it serve you? Is it oppressing you? Is it helping you to thrive? Then move on. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Thank you.
Yes, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes. See, listen, we can be here all day.
I clearly, and I love it.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say there are other questions in the chat, and I can raise one, and then we can sort of hop back in. Yeah. Someone said, my guy wants to know what he can gain from being gay, and is he going to hell for doing this? And I want to name that what we're talking about right now is religious trauma. Right? This notion idea that we are going to hell if we embody the truth of who we are, right, is one that we hear over and over and over again. And that begins to sit in our hearts, in our minds, in our spirits. And it cultivates this sense of fear and anxiety, right, and disconnection and angst from God. And so what I want to say to the person who asked that question is, God loves you as you are. What you have to gain by living into the truth of yourself is everything. A better understanding of God, a better understanding of yourself, and the ability to see God in a way that no one else can see God. Because there's a perspective that only you can have. There's a truth that only you can tell. And the Bible says, I'm feeling good now, Lamont, you didn't got me in trouble. The Bible says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Somebody is waiting to get free after they hear your testimony. Somebody is going to be released from bondage after hearing your testimony. So speak your truth and know that everything, that like what you have to gain is everything. So live in and know that when you do, God is with you. You get to gain being your authentic self.
Yes. And once you are your authentic self, no one can take anything from you because you're not trying to subscribe to be like anyone else. I think I know there is this requirement, this notion that to be a man means you have to procreate. Like you have to procreate with a woman. And if you do anything less than that, then there's something wrong with you. Yeah. And that is what we're talking about today, that you have to unlearn who you're measuring yourself to. You're not
Yes.
measuring yourself for success to heterosexual norms. You're not
Ye-
measuring yourself as success as if I am being like what the Bible way back in the day says I'm supposed to be like. Even though there was polygamy, polyamory, there was rape, there was incest, and they not only were okay with it, they sanctioned it, they supported it, they celebrated it, right? But
Yeah.
come
Yep.
2023, there are some things that are different. So I say, sit down with yourself,
Yeah.
argue with God. Like when I say
Yes.
argue, it's okay for you to cuss, scream, say, "No, we got to take me back." I, it's not sitting right. Like take your
Yes.
time, whether that's 6 months, 12 months. Have hard
Whatever.
conversations with
Yep.
God so that He can speak to you. And
Yeah.
say, "This is who I want you to be." Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I
Yeah.
completely agree. And here's the other thing I'll name, Lamont, and I think this is an important one, and that is like we have all been taught to live into heteronormativity.
Mhm, mhm,
Right? This notion and idea that we need to be straight, and there are particular ways that straight men
mhm,
and straight women act, right?
mhm,
Particularly cis straight men and
mhm,
cis straight women. And there can be this sort of notion and idea that if you don't live into that,
mhm,
right, then you aren't doing what God has called you to do, or you aren't able to fulfill your purpose,
mhm,
right, in life or in the world.
mhm,
But I can tell you unequivocally, the text does not demand that of us,
mhm,
neither does it command that of us.
mhm,
But it does tell us that if you want a relationship with God, if you want to worship God,
mhm,
you should worship God in spirit and in truth.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
There's no way, right, you can be in communion with God if you aren't living your full truth.
If you're hiding, like you're hiding, and you think that at the core of who you are a huge, significant component of who you are that God thinks is shameful, is
Yeah.
wrong, and even more than that, because people say abomination, that it's disgusting. Like I grew up in places where they would like it was okay for you to beat your wife. Like we can pray that you be okay, but it is disgusting if you decide to be with another man. So if you
Yeah.
internalize that,
Yes. Yeah.
that impacts your relationship with God. And then you're like, well, Lamont, why are we talking about this today? Because
Yeah.
imagine trying to date somebody.
Right.
Imagine trying to fall in love with someone who thinks there's a significant component of who they are is shameful, it's wrong, and being in relationship with you or together, they still gotta go pray after they have sex with you. They still gotta
Yeah.
pray after they say I love you. What? What kind of
Yeah.
gymnastics is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
If you're in a relationship with someone who
Hmm.
believes that your very union,
Hmm.
right,
Hmm.
is despised by God, or your very union,
Hmm.
right, is despicable in the eyesight of God,
Hmm.
it doesn't feel good. If they see you as the tempter, if they see you as someone who is causing them to fall into this
Hmm.
or to do
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
right, like that is no way to love,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Your significant other. That's no way to be in relationship with
Hmm.
your significant other.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful that even as we've internalized this and we're working to heal ourselves,
Hmm.
making sure that we aren't passing that shame on,
Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
to those whom we love,
Yeah.
because we realize the toll it has taken on us.
Yeah. And I will tell you
Yeah.
this, and I'll say this is these are my beliefs, these are my words, these are not Dawn's. I'll put that out
Let's see
first.
what you got to say.
Yes. So like there's a popular gospel artist, Donnie McKirkland, right? And when I grew up, I used to love his song, We Fall Down But We Get Up, right? Like I was like, oh my God, yes. And I would literally say, okay, I had sex with a man. I can pray. I fell down, right? I fell
Mm.
down, but I can get back up.
Yeah.
And hearing Donnie's story, that's his heart crying out, wanting a God to love him for who he is, but because of what he has been taught, it's a sin. But if he keeps falling at this sin over and over again, he can get back up. And
Yeah.
my and a lot of people believe that way. They go to these
Yes.
churches where they say being gay is a sin, but it's just like any other sin.
Right.
Just like any other sin. Just pray. You messed up. You can come back. And I guess for me, I'm like, no, no.
No.
God wants you
No.
to be with a man.
Yes.
He wants you to be happy.
Yes.
And subscribing to a belief system that says you can't love who you want will keep you in the state that Donnie is in. And I just, I think he does great music, but I think he's in a place where he just needs to have change his circle of friends and
Yeah.
the money and just do his own thing. But I do feel like a lot of gay men are where he is. Excuse me.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And there's someone who wants to hop on. They've been trying to get in, so I'm gonna bring them in and we can continue the convo. Yeah, no, but I completely agree.
Yeah. But I used to love that song. I used to love it. I guess.
Yeah. And it's like the issue, to your point, right, is that like equating queerness, right, your sexuality, living your truth with a murderer. Equating you living your truth with an adulterer, equating you living your truth with a thief. These are false moral equivalencies.
Yeah.
I am not immoral because I'm living into the truth of my identity.
Yeah.
I am not immoral by loving another man fully and wholly. I'm not immoral because I'm not cisgender. All right. And equating the two is problematic, to say the least.
Yes. And so I feel like in order for someone to be truly dateable, as people who are watching, to be truly dateable, you have to have these tough conversations with yourself, with God, with a therapist, before and heal from some of that church trauma. Whether, and I think we talked about this earlier, whether you have gone to a church or you've not been a part of a church, it still has impacted you somehow. It still has. Yeah.
Period. And I'll also name, since we're talking about being dateable, right? Like sometimes we need to actually deal with our trauma, right? And the trauma of our faith-based institutions before we decide to date. Right? Because some of us aren't actually prepared to be loved in the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
Some of us aren't prepared to bear the weight of someone loving us unapologetically. Because sometimes the only love that we've been given has been conditional love. And so if you've normalized conditional love in your life, when someone tries to come in and love you unconditionally, sometimes it can be too much to bear.
Dawn, I used to date a man like that. I was just like, this ain't gonna work. This is not gonna work. Because it came with demands. It came like, and it's like, wait a minute, no, this is who I am.
Yes.
Like, if you either get on board with it or you go find somebody else.
Yes. And not to mention, I mean, the notion and idea of being in the closet and then coming out of the closet and then getting back in the closet and then coming out, right, depending on the context that you find yourself in, that sort of whiplash, right, does damage to your psyche.
Yeah.
That sort of whiplash does nothing but foment shame, right, and make you believe that your relationship isn't worthy. But I can tell you this, I learned a long time ago, if you're going to love me, you're not only going to love me in the dark, child, you're going to have to love me in the light.
But there's a lot of people, and somebody put it in the chat, that will date people in the closet. They will have sex in the closet, and then in public, they walk right by each other. Yeah.
And this is where we have to work on the shame that we've internalized. Right? We have to know that we are worthy of being loved, held, kissed, caressed in public. We are worthy of that. Period.
Self-love. It's called self-love. Yes.
We are worthy. Like we don't have to hustle for that worthiness or compromise our sense of self. Right? And a lot of times, and I'll name this is where I'm probably gonna get in trouble, Lamont. But you gotta pray with me and for me. The lionization and celebration of trade
Yeah.
is internalized homophobia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The ways in which we shame
Mm-hmm.
femme bottoms
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is internalization
Mm-hmm.
of homophobia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so until we recognize that even the folk we lionize and celebrate in our community,
Mm-hmm.
Trade, he got a baby mama. Y'all don't want to talk to me, right? He not in the community.
Right. Right.
He's not known by everybody.
Right. Right.
That desire is rooted
Mm-hmm.
in not wanting to be publicly associated
Yeah.
with queerness.
Right. Right. So it's saying, hey, let me be more close, or I desire what looks like straight people, how their culture. And that's what you're measuring beauty,
Yes.
attraction, success
Yes.
by. And instead, embracing
Yep.
the variety that exists within our community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same is true for the way in which we shame femme bottoms or bottoms generally. Right?
Somebody got a bottom if we having sex. So y'all ain't gonna be dying all day.
Tell the truth and shame the devil. Somebody bottom.
Right.
Okay.
So,
like and so it just ultimately is rooted, right, in internalized homophobia.
Yeah.
And if we want to actually undo that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we have to acknowledge the ways that it's even baked into our dating culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's desirable,
Mm-hmm.
what we want,
Mm-hmm.
whom we see as dateable, who we see as being worthy of being proud of, and who we see as someone we should be ashamed of,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I mean, you see it, right? And I'll name this, we use derogatory statements used against us,
Mm-hmm.
right, toward folk in our own community.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The same things that folk use to degrade and denigrate us,
Mm-hmm.
we turn around and call folk in our community that very same thing.
Because there's an example, like you can say girl so many different ways, and it can mean so many different things.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right? And
Yep.
I think, and it's something that, we have been taught by our religious beliefs that
Yes.
if a man does not fit into this box of masculinity,
Yep.
then he's worse than a woman. And Lord,
Yes.
no, you can't be worse than a woman in the Bible.
Worse than a woman.
They let women, it's okay to rape them, it's okay to beat them, like they have to be submissive. Yep. So if you're a man less than a woman, then oh my goodness.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you are in many ways violating the principle of manhood.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? If you are somehow bottoming, if you're somehow laying with another man, you're violating the principle because you're taking on the positionality of femininity and womanhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've internalized that and then shame bottoms and femmes because of it.
So the takeaway message, people, is unlearn that, okay?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's I see Gerald is asking to be brought in again. Okay. I know I attempted to once before, and so we'll see if he's able to come in.
And then I have some scenarios that I want to go over with you too.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. It doesn't seem like they're letting Gerald come in, child. So
okay, cool. So listen, you all, I got some scenarios for the people who are watching. I want you all to respond to these scenarios. Like, what would you do, or what questions would you have in these different scenarios? Okay. So people, I want y'all to give some input. And by the way, there've been a lot of preachers on here tonight. Okay.
A lot of preachers. I saw Bishop Keith McQueen and
I counted 12. Okay, at least 12. Okay.
You're 12. We in a room, child.
Okay. All right, so people who are listening, say if you are dating a guy, you all have been dating for a few weeks, it is brand new, and he says, you know what, I want you to go to church with me. So you're dating a guy, you've hung out, got something to eat before, y'all went to the movies, y'all do those boring dates. And then date number 3 or 4, he's like, hey, do you want to go to church with me? What are some questions or concerns, or how would you all handle that situation? Someone invites you to go to church with them.
That's good. That's good.
I want to see these responses.
Yeah, as do I.
Now, I've invited, before I was married, I have invited guys to go to church with me. I even
Okay.
invited my husband to go to church with me. Ah.
And how was at this time? Were you at an affirming church or?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay.
I was single, and then I start like really, really dating at
I
affirming
got
church. Yeah, yeah.
you. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Makes
somebody
sense.
said they're going to go. They would go. I'm going to go praise because yeah, God comes first. Yes. Someone else said they would go, but don't look for me to participate. They were like, "What's the name of the church?" What else? What else in these comments?
Somebody said politely decline.
Mhm.
I would politely decline.
Why would you decline? We want to. Why would you decline? Somebody said they will
Yeah.
welcome the invite. Okay, they might want to know what the theology is of the church. Someone else said they're
Yeah.
agnostic, but they would go.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, that's interesting.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, someone said I'm an atheist, so I would say no, even aside from the concern about whether it's affirming.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
Somebody said, "Is it required for me to go? You got to come at some point."
I would love to go with him to church. I've done it several times before. I love having God in the middle of our relationship. I love it. I don't know if I want God in the middle, but
Not that type of
let me.
threesome. Not that type of threesome. Oh, so
Oh my goodness.
they're like, Lamont, where is this going? Um, I think these are good questions to ask because you if a guy invites you to church, that means that's important to him. One,
Yes.
one, so you have to acknowledge it. Two, I think asking those questions like, well, what type of church is it? What's the theology? What's the attire? Is this important? Is it a requirement? That lets the guy know that you are listening to him and you're really vetting the process. Um,
Yes.
and some people said they would politely decline.
Yeah.
If that's a boundary of yours, that's great because in the dating phase, you're trying to see if you're compatible.
Yes.
And if the
Yes.
person's expectation is that you are going to church with them every Sunday and you are like, there's no way in the world that's going to happen, you want to find that out in the dating phase.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I will name that this question,
hmm
not just about what church do you go
hmm
to, but what is your belief system?
hmm hmm
Right?
hmm
What's your value system? What informs that?
hmm
Because a lot of folks actually named like I'm atheist or I'm agnostic,
hmm hmm
right? I have a different belief system. And so actually asking folk about their belief system
hmm
in the dating process is really important. And you being clear about the role that faith plays in your life,
hmm
right, is really important so that you might be able to articulate it. Because sometimes, if you go to church and, you love praising God and dancing, right, in spaces that aren't hospitable to that, you can shy away from it and actually diminish the importance that it has in your life. And that's not you living your truth.
Yeah, because I'm not going to your church and you tearing that carpet up and I'm your friend.
Right.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Right.
Mm-mm. Not gonna happen. Okay, I got another scenario. Another scenario. Okay. Okay, you're on a date with a guy. So y'all, where y'all go to date? Where y'all go to dates at? Whatever restaurant y'all go eat. And
Where y'all go?
y'all getting a deep dish pizza in Chicago. And
Yeah.
he says, you know what? I don't believe in God because he thinks, gays are sinful and he hates us. You're on a date, you think he's great, you're having a random conversation. He's like, yeah, I don't believe in God. And the reason I don't believe in him is because he thinks being gay is sinful and we're abomination, all that.
Mm-hmm.
How are you all responding? Like, what do
Yeah.
you do in that moment? What do you think is going on? Like, what you say amen to it? You agree with it? Like, I want to know. Somebody said, check, please.
Check, please.
Somebody said, check, please. Okay. That means it's a no. Okay. I want to, what other responses?
Yeah.
They said, why do you believe, and show me the proof? Like, why do you believe God hates gay people, and show me the proof? So
Yeah.
you're like, hey, let's have a discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody said, grab my purse and leave. Someone said, I would be highly intrigued. I wouldn't bother me, but I want to understand why he feels that way.
Ah, that's good.
These comments are moving fast.
They are.
Somebody said, God didn't
Somebody said
say
God
that.
didn't say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody said, I'm not even asking for the check. I'm just leaving. Brendan, why are you leaving the brother? So if when I hear someone say, I don't believe in God because he doesn't
Yeah.
like gay people or hates gay people, I look past that. I don't believe that. You
Mhm.
do believe in God. You're just angry with
Mhm.
God.
Yep.
Or you're angry with the people of God, air quote,
Yeah.
as I roll my
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
angry with
Yeah.
the institution, the people of God, or this notion that he doesn't love you. And I would probe more. I would probe more and be like, hey, like someone said, tell me why you believe that. And I might just name it and say, it sounds like you're more angry with God.
And Lamont, we were just talking about religious trauma, right?
Mhm.
This disposition is a direct result of religious trauma.
Mhm.
I have been berated with biblical bullets,
Mhm.
telling me that I am not loved by God.
Mhm.
And if that's what God believes, I don't want anything to do with that God.
Mhm.
Right. And so also recognize that when someone has an adversarial disposition toward church
Mhm.
because of what they think God says or the
Mhm.
Bible says,
Mhm.
that's also likely rooted in a traumatic experience, right,
Mhm.
that they've had in a house of worship or in a church.
Mhm.
So to your point, Lamont, approaching with curiosity is really important.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And some people are like, oh, I wouldn't date someone who's still dealing with trauma. I will say, if we are honest, we as black gay men,
Talk, Lamont, talk,
no matter where we are in life, we are still dealing with some level of trauma.
talk, talk.
We are still dealing with some level of internalized homophobia. Even me, I'm the gay dating coach. There are still moments that I catch myself and I'm like, Lamont,
Mm.
where'd that come from? Like that,
Mm.
unlearn some of that, right? So, and we can't like expect perfection from gay men, because there's so much like negative talk out there against us. It's an ever lifelong process of dealing with trauma.
Yep, yep. And be patient with yourself
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just for the person who's dating someone who has religious trauma. As you're dealing with it,
Mm-hmm.
be honest and name that
Mm-hmm.
thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But that takes self-awareness. Be able to say that, like, I want to date,
Mm-hmm.
I am here for it,
Mm-hmm.
and I am recovering from religious trauma. So there might be times where some of that stuff comes up,
Mm-hmm.
but it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. 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 Nothing to do with you. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. nothing to do with you. I'm still working through some stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like you got to name that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that no, and they can decide.
Yeah.
Right. They can decide for themselves once you articulate it.
Yeah. And I think that's why therapy is a good thing. You all can watch all the YouTube videos that you want. You can read as many books as you want, but like literally sitting down and talking with somebody and having that mental exercise, unpacking, unlearning that stuff, it'll change your life. So I'm a big advocate for therapy.
Yeah.
Another scenario, final scenario, because we've been talking.
Yeah.
So, you go on a date with a guy. He is absolutely amazing. Like you are compatible. Y'all want six figures, six pack, 6 feet. Like he's the whole package. And in your conversation with him, he goes, yeah, I think being gay is just like any other sin. Like I'm a gay man. It's just like what stealing, murder, being a murderer, being a rapist, doing. It's just like being like I'm just like the average sinner. Being gay is just like any other sin. What y'all gonna do? What comes to mind? I want to know.
Wow.
What this is what he believes. I like who I am, but I guess he just believes that being gay is a sin. Someone said, I'm no longer interested. Someone said, it's not, question mark. Child, go look at the beginning of this video, because we already.
I'm gonna need we're saving it. We're gonna save it. You can review it. Yeah, make some time.
Somebody said, no, pimp. Okay, no, let's go back to therapy. He said, it gives me self-hate.
It gives self-hate. Yeah.
That you hit the nail on the head. And a gay man, I'm gonna be real specific, a gay man who thinks being gay is just like any other sin, it's gonna creep up in your relationship. He's gonna pray after he has sex with you, because he has to pray the sin away, right? He's gonna probably try not to be intimate with you. There are moments where he may or may not introduce you to his family members, his congregation. He may have some internalized homophobia that shows up regularly on a daily basis. Like, these are the symptoms. Like, yeah.
Yep. And the other thing I'll add there too is that what that also means is the community that they are surrounded by, right, will not affirm your love, your connection, or your relationship. So even if you are brought around, right, they're accepting this individual on the condition that they see themselves as a sin. And they will put you in that prism too, in ways that are not healthy for your own mental health and wellness.
Somebody said that feels like a heavy weight. Yeah, brother, free yourself. Like,
free.
Yeah. So I think these are the types of questions you want to ask in the dating phase. And I think also experience in the dating phase to see if somebody is compatible for you. But before you start to assess somebody else, you got to work inwardly and continuously work inwardly. I think, again, people think that trauma is supposed to like disappear, but like, I got a scar that it still hasn't, like, it's covered, but that scar is still there. That's the same thing with trauma when it comes to being, from church. It's still there. It doesn't go away. So give yourself, we said, grace, give each other grace. I hope this conversation was helpful for people who were watching. Dawn, I think you did an amazing job. Like, please, y'all, give Dawn an amazing job. Like, round of applause.
Look, this is my first time on, child. I watch, because I see how it goes, and they can be wild in the comments. So, it's been okay so far.
So it's a different vibe on Thursdays. Okay, it's a different comment section. Now you go to that Wednesday crowd. I can't promise you anything. Okay.
Look, I need to make my way over to Wednesday. That's what I need to do. Make my way. Okay.
Just put a bulletproof vest on. Put a vest on. Okay. Because they even told me my shirt came from Walmart, and I was like, "What? I paid $100 for that shirt."
Oh my goodness, gays can be shadier than church mothers, child.
Yes.
I'm trying to tell you. No, but thank you so much, Lamont, for inviting me on for this conversation. This is really a joy, and I have a feeling that this won't be the last time we get together and dig a little bit deeper.
Yes, definitely. Again, thank you.
The non-sexual way, of course.
Look, we're definitely thank you all for watching again on probably every other Thursday or once a month. We'll have a different topic. Again, you all show up. I'll keep showing up. But thank you all for, being engaged in the comment section. And then, Dawn, thanks for hosting this one since IG wouldn't let us.
My pleasure.
When you share it, just instead of tagging, make me a collaborator. So it'll show up on both of our accounts.
Got you. Will do.
Yeah. All right. Good night.
All right. Good night.
Good night.